folks. I thought today I'd do a little ramble. I'm kind of in between some of my larger video projects, and so I'm not really quite ready with those. I've been off the grid for a couple of days, so that got me thinking about just talking about being in nature and being outdoors and that kind of thing. So I thought I'd just ramble about that a little bit. I just have a couple of books and props here to use as a background. Just talk about a little bit. And I don't know exactly where to start. Well, I guess since it's on top, maybe I'll start with this Lego set. And I apologize, some of the lighting I'm having trouble getting set up the way I wanted today, so I'm trying to avoid the glare, but I'll do my best with that. But my son got me this little Lego set a number of years ago, and I have never opened it. Now, when we go camping, we don't have a motorhome type vehicle like that. And we don't have a canoe either, although sometimes we do rent canoes or kayaks, but I think he just thought it was cool because we go camping together. So he got me this. As you can see, it's got a couple of little figures, man and a woman, it looks like, this motorhome and this little canoe. And like I said, I have never opened this set, and I haven't put it together, so I don't know exactly, how long it takes or what's involved. But it looks pretty cool. It looks like the motorhome has some insides, some interior features, a little kitchen area, a little canoe. Looks cool. Someday I'll maybe open it and actually put the Lego kit together. I've been just keeping it sealed up. And then I have this old booklet that my mom had. This little booklet was put out in 1968 by the Pacific Gas and Electric Company, San Francisco, California. So that's the gas and electric company for the region. Unfortunately, it doesn't have color photos. Color photos back in this day were more expensive to print for color process photos. So it has halftone photos. We'll go through some of them anyway. There's a cool one there. That old Corvette in it. So again, this was put out in 1968 by the gas company, or the electric company. It's both in this area, same company. And it has this introduction by Ronald Reagan, who was the governor at that time. And what this book is about what, in this title, Gateways to California, what they're talking about are the old wagon roads of how people got here in the 19th century when there was the great immigration movement, the migration across the continent to the west. And I suppose I could read Ronald Reagan's introduction. Much of the colorful history of California revolves around man's early effort to reach this golden land. The towering mountains, which today provide an abundance of scenic and economic wealth, were for many long years great barriers to isolating this region from the rest of the continent. The missionaries and explorers, the trappers, traders, and gold seekers who blazed the trails into California formed the vanguard of a great western migration which continues to this day. Our system of fine state highways and freeways had its beginnings in such noble roads as El Camino Real, the King's Highway, and the Immigrant Trail. This book traces some of these beginnings. It recounts the authentic drama and adventures which surrounded California's historic mountain passes and highways which cross them. It is quite appropriate that these stories should be collected and published by Pacific Gas and Electric Company, which had its beginnings in the gold rush days. In offering it free to Californians, PG&E is making a valuable contribution towards furthering the story of our state's great heritage and colorful past. I am very pleased to add these few words of commendation for another act of good corporate citizenship. So on the front cover it says that's Mount Morrison, a group of peaks in the eastern wall of the Sierra Nevada, towers above Little Antelope Valley north of Bishop. That's that cover photo. So that's sort of Southern California, east of Bishop. Now this photo, down the Placerville Road, 1865. It's not a photo, but an illustration. So this map shows some of the main routes into California from the east. So this southern route was the earliest used and the sort of, I guess I'll say the easiest, brought you into Southern California, and then you would work your way north if you were headed to the gold mines, or just to the Bay Area, San Francisco region. The later routes were more rugged and were not broken until a little bit later. And as you know, there's some people suffered trying to break those trails, or even after those trails were broken, tried to even traverse those trails. It was a challenging route in those early days. The other standard route was actually to go to Oregon first and then work your way down. So that's the Oregon Trail up north there. And then you can see all these different branches of ways into California. And these have now, most of these map somewhat closely to where the modern highways are, and the highway and the modern passes. They're not always exactly in the same place, but they're often close to these old wagon routes. And I think I mentioned in another video that I kind of one of my hobbies is kind of studying this immigration, this migration, and these wagon routes and wagon trains and that whole era that lasted a number of years throughout the 19th century. And that's what this book is sort of describing. These different routes and passes over the Sierra Nevada. So the Sierra Nevada range is right here, and it's huge mountains. And even though you may have been coming from a place where it snowed a lot, nothing like what happens in the Sierra Nevada in the wintertime with 10, 15 feet of snow and just constant. So you can see some of these major passes that are still along these modern roads. Donner Pass, Echo Summit, Carson Pass, Ebbets Pass, Sonora Pass, Tioga Pass. These are, those are some of the biggies. And if you know the California roads, that's Interstate 80, California 50, 88, 4, and 108. Or I guess that's US 50, not California 50. And it's California 88, 4, and 108. In this map, it's not quite as obvious, but you've got Lake Tahoe there, and you've got Yosemite right in this area. Which are not highlighted on this particular map. So that's what this book is kind of showing, are these different passes. So that's what that Tejon Pass, Grapevine looked like back then. May not be that different, actually, that part of the road, for that matter. There's a photo with a Corvette showing the Sonora Pass. And an old stage line, so that would have been pretty late in the migration period. It says the 1860s. So by that time they had organized stages. But most people organized their own wagon train, their own group. And then used the various routes that were available. This photo is a Donner Party monument on Donner Pass. Here says Carson Pass Highway in winter. This says Robbers Roost Rocks Mark Walker Pass area. You can see that's another one of the southern passes. So anyway, these passes are significant relative to the camping that we often do, because it's usually in one of these areas, near one of these areas, oftentimes that we camp. This is more related to Southern California, the desert passes. There's an example of a borax wagon. All the mules. That's not the way the early immigrants traveled, with that many mules hitched to big wagons. Don't know if they have a good illustration of what that kind of a pack would look like, or that kind of a wagon train would look like. More often than not, it would be small farm wagons hitched to a few oxen, possibly mules. Oxen were the preferred animal in those early era. Wouldn't be horses. Would be either oxen or mule, most likely oxen. The groups would often bring horses, particularly for scouting around, but they typically were not. Well, that's a little closer to what it would look like. a setup would look like in that little illustration where you've got just a couple of wagons being pulled by oxen. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I've been off the grid for a few days. So that's one reason why I'm deciding to just put together a quick little ramble video. Because I haven't really had time to complete to the extent I'd like to some of the other videos that I'm working on. So again, a little book of those gateways and passes of the way people traveled to California in those early days. And there's many places you can go and still see some of those passes. You can take a hike off the main road. In some places the trail's been kind of obliterated by the modern highways, but in some places it's not. And you can take a little hike and go see some of these passes where those wagon trains went. So this book is a book, Backcountry Adventures, and I just kind of have it out here primarily for this photo, and I might talk about it a little bit, or flip it open a little bit to show a few of the parts. But another thing about, like the camping trips that we do, we go pretty much off-grid, usually dispersed camping where there's no services. So you bring everything you need, and you take everything you bring out. So all your trash you haul out yourself, and you leave wherever you camped just the same way it was when you set up camp. And we try to go out somewhere where there's fewer people, which means typically getting out a little further on the more rugged roads, which kind of become a gatekeeper to the average car camper. And we like it more secluded like that. And in that, I wanted to mention, something that you can sort of read about, called the 3-day effect. And I kind of observed this and kind of felt this way years before there was research on this topic, official research. But I noticed when we would go out for a longer getaway for a longer period of time, and disconnect from the internet and constant cell phones and texting and phone calls, and there was always this wind down period where the first couple of days you're still thinking about, kind of all the things in your life, all those stressors and just the daily bouts and movements and activities involved in sort of being in civilization and in your work roles and things like that. And but then on that third day, you can start to focus more on here and now, and you get rid of that stuff, and you aren't picking up your phone to see if there's a text and this kind of thing, because of course there aren't any texts. You're out of service, and you're not checking the news sites and all those sorts of things, and you really start to disconnect and then kind of reconnect, and finally get that rest that you need. And it seems like it's that third day when that starts. And since then, there's been a number of studies that have shown that to be true, that if you get disconnected for 3 days, or that third day is when the real sort of healing and regeneration starts and happens. So anyway, and you can sort of look into that. And what they found is that, people's ability to do certain cognitive function was better. So like their test before and their test after the 3 days in the wilderness, are disconnected, were better. And their theory about it is that it's a rest for our cortex, our prefrontal cortex, and that it's good for our brain to get that rest, where we're not constantly in that routine of checking our emails and all those things, and we can get out and look at a new thing in a new space, and maybe with different stressors, hopefully not too many, but in nature, and get away from all that stuff. And it seems to have an effect of rejuvenating your cognitive processes, so our cognitive effectiveness. So it seems like there's science behind it now, even though, like I say, I sort of observed this years ago, and always felt that if you're going to do it, you need to get out and get away and get all that stuff turned off and get disconnected for at least 3 days. And that can be hard, because it's sometimes hard to even find a place where you can get disconnected to self-service, so many places. And so there actually are, adventure companies that sort of help you do this, Outward Bound and others, and many others actually, all kinds of different organizations can do this if you have trouble sort of doing this on your own. And, for some, that might mean, a canoeing trip or rafting or something like that. For others, it's sort of not an activity. I mean, it could be a hike, it could do whatever, but, those activities are good, and they're their own set of sort of challenges for the brain. But, I actually believe if you don't want to do a lot and you just want to get away, and you'll probably find yourself hiking anyway, because, what else is there to do? So go for a little hike, go for a swim, go for, get out and do things. But you'll probably find yourself doing that even if you hadn't previously organized it or planned to do it. You thought, well, I'll just rest, literally sit around for 3 days. And that's not likely to happen. You're probably going to get a little bored and want to find things to do. So you'll likely go for hikes and at least go swimming or something. So anyway, I thought it was kind of cool that it seems like the science is backing up that some things that I'd sort of observed a long time ago about getting away. And I don't think I'll do a whole video on the 3-day effect, but maybe someday. We'll see. It might be interesting enough. We'll see if I can do something like that. And I wish this book, it has a ton of places, but it doesn't have a lot, of nice, big color photographs. It's got a lot of information, and it is a pretty cool book. And it's kind of geared toward moderate off-road kind of things, that are kind of dirt road kind of stuff, not, very intense off-roading, but, kind of trails and things that a pretty basic vehicle can get through. And so it's got a ton of places to consider in California, in Northern California. And when I'm talking about the camping that we do, more often than not, it's kind of in this region. I mean, we go other places sometimes, but these are the most common places we go. So this is Lake Tahoe here. While we don't usually camp at Lake Tahoe because it's so crowded and so popular, it's still a beautiful place, and you should definitely see it if you get a chance. But there's all kinds of national forest and some California parks as well, but a lot of national forest here, which I love because in these national forests, that you can do something called dispersed camping, which is just stopping somewhere and camping. And it's free, and you can do it on your own. So, and there's so much beautiful national forest area here, and other places around California as well, but this region, this is, all the Sierra region right here. So you have these Sierra Mountains. And so you'll be camping at 6,000, 7,000, 8,000, even 9,000 feet. And the mountains themselves go up higher than that, but you often aren't. Unless you're backpacking, you probably aren't camping at the top of the mountain. Although we've camped pretty close, above the tree line and so on. But and you certainly could do that if you wanted to. But so that's kind of where we most commonly do camping in these regions here. Sometimes farther south, sometimes a little farther north, but that's probably where most of the time we're camping somewhere. And there's so many places. I mean, you can kind of look in this book, and this book doesn't even have them all. But there's a ton of places in that whole region to find great remote camping spots. And, and some of these pictures are representative, whether they're specifically a place we've gone or not, but they're very representative of what the scenery is like. This picture shows kind of the granite up there that you're going to find in a lot of places. That's pretty. Sorry, that was a little loud. Here's a few pictures. Lily Lake, been there many times. There's a lot of these high mountain lakes like that. But I was just going to show a few pictures that are kind of representative of the kind of things you'll see. You will see these fire lookouts sometimes. They're kind of cool. And this kind of scenery, very common. You can see here it's pretty close to the tree line. You can see kind of where the trees end up there. That's high altitude Blue Lakes area. And here's another photo from Blue Lakes, very typical of the kind of scenery you'll see camping in this area, or many of these areas. It's really beautiful. So that's kind of what I wanted to ramble about a little bit today, is getting outdoors. And I'm sure where you live there's some places you can go, but if you get a chance to make it out to the Sierra Nevada of California, it's a beautiful place. And if you like wintertime, of course, there's a lot of opportunity for snow and snowboarding and other wintertime activities. We primarily do summer activities. It's just beautiful in the summertime. A lot of mountain lakes and rivers to swim in. Beautiful blue skies, sunshine, occasional thunderstorms, even in the summer. So, hopefully you found this little ramble about, well, I guess camping and getting outdoors and California pathways and immigrants and wagon trains. So, I don't know. It was about a lot of things. And the 3-day effect, which, I definitely encourage you to look into and experience, especially if you have a stressful job and a stressful daily life. it can really regenerate and feel really good and really help you out. De-stress and also improve the performance of whatever you are doing in your job or day-to-day tasks. So, again, hopefully you found it relaxing, and I can see you again in a future video. Thanks for watching. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.